right, all right, all right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening, Sister Sam, Sister Wood, Juanita Talbert on Facebook. Come on in tonight for our final part of our series, We Come This Far by Faith. Come on in, come on in. We're going to give you a few minutes to come in before we get going with our esteemed panel. Today, we are so glad to have all of you checking in on today. Hello, Carmela Thomas, what's going on? Reginald Harris, good to see you out there today. Cheryl Wallaire, Gail Patey, hello, come on in today for this, our final series for Black History Month. Geraldine, how are you feeling today? We thank God for each of you as you come in today and share with us on this final part of our series. Michelle Stewart, hello, good evening to you as well. Come on in, we'll be starting in just a few minutes. There is Jamil Tillman. Jamil, you got a relative that's going to be saying something today. Imani Legrone, that baby hadn't come out yet. I won't let that baby come out while we are doing our broadcast. Well, at least you're not in the church, so you're in good hands. All right. Sister Williams, how are you? Good evening. Looks like you're doing a little bit better with that arm. I saw you on Saturday at the funeral. Looks like God is healing you just fine. Come on in tonight. Come on in, come on in, come on in. We pray everyone had a good day on today. We pray everyone remembers that Sunday will be our first time back in the house in a couple of months. And so we thank God for the opportunity to be back in the house of the Lord one more time. All right, all right. Just a few more minutes. We let some folks come in. Let those hearts come in. I see the love coming through on Facebook right now. Share this with a friend. You are sure to be blessed tonight. Elma Turner, good evening to you as well. It's always great to see you on the line and your faithfulness. Come on in tonight. We have just a few more minutes and then we will get going. Deacon Ron Davis is on the line. Hey, Deacon Ron, how are you? Hope you had a good day on tonight. All right. All right, it is 7:05, so let us get started with our panel for tonight. They have all been mic checked, and so let us now go to God in prayer on tonight. Dear Lord, we thank you for this evening. We thank you, God, for the past few weeks that we've discussed the plight of our people. God, we have endeavored into our past, and tonight we want to be able to assess our present, that we may be able to chart the course for a brighter and grand future. Lord, order our steps today, order our conversation, God. May someone be blessed by what is heard today. And we thank you, God, for our panel and for them coming down on their leisure time and sharing with us on this evening. Go with us, God, and stand by us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, let's get going. Well, it would not be a panel if I did not introduce our guests. Again, we are thankful to all those who have been with us now going into our fourth week. We are so delighted and thankful for Leo Clark, Azalee Sutton, Elaine Ballard, and Matthew Ballard on our first night. We say hello and we thank you to Sister Dorothy Tillman, who blessed us as the first group talked about life in the South, and Sister Tillman drew us more into the movement, and we even touched a little bit on Chicago and the plight of black Chicagoans. We thank God for last week. Spencer Lee Sr., a person that you all really didn't know that part of his story, who shared with us what the movement was like in Chicago and what it was like to be Dr. Martin Luther King's driver here in Chicago. And so we had so many lessons learned over the past few weeks that tonight we're going to hear from another group. And I want to share something with you tonight, because for this group, and by the way, this is my group, y'all. Okay, this is my group. I made 50, but I ain't quite aged out of this group yet. This is my group. And so before I introduce them and give you a little bit of their resumes, I want you to understand, because as we look in a traditional sense at these individuals, the first mistake we can make is to say, this is Liberty's future, right? They're the future. Look how well prepared they are. They're the future. And I would submit to you tonight, and this may be taboo, and we may even have individuals that take issue with this, that as long as we look at this panel, this bright group of black folks that have worked over 20 years in their various fields, have graduated from college, have kids in college, raising kids, as a people, if we continue to look at individuals that meet this criteria as our future, then we have already lost. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not talking to our future. I'm talking to our now. This generation we're talking to tonight is the now generation. And we're lost as a black race because we don't succession plan. This group is right now. This group is who needs to be called to leadership right now. Now, I know we got some seasoned citizens that ain't catching it, that may feel threatened. Oh, he trying to get us out the way. That's not what I'm trying to do. But every generation ought to prepare the next generation to step up. We need wisdom like I had with Sister Tillman. I need her. I need her to keep pouring into me to be strong. I need Spencer Lee to keep pouring into me to be strong. Why? Because old men are for counsel and wise men are for war. These are our warriors now. This is our now. And we've missed it as a people across the board, from politics to businesses to church. I'm afraid to say, black folks, we have skipped a whole generation of people. And we're going to introduce you to another generation tonight that are the children of this group. And what I'm afraid is going to happen is when this generation is gone, the one behind will have no example. Because their parents that were the now generation never had an opportunity. So why is it black businesses don't last past 2 generations? No succession plan. Why is it that churches in our communities fail and find themselves in ruin after glorious years or days gone by? No succession plan. And so what we need now is a unity within our community and within our churches, where we sit at the feet of those that have gone on before, and we are inspired. But more importantly, we are allowed, with the support of everyone, to be the now generation. So I want y'all to type today, welcome now generation. This is the now generation. And I'll leave you one other nugget, because this is their night, and I want you to hear from them. I want you, as we talk about the relationship with the now generation and the generation of the past and how it should look, I just want you to look at the past 3 weeks. Look at the past 3 weeks. How we were blessed by the first group, how we were blessed by Sister Tillman, how we were blessed by Brother Lee. And what you'll see there is, this is how you pass wisdom down. You don't pass wisdom down. There was never a conversation over the past 3 weeks where anybody was telling me what to do. Brother Leak never said, you got to look like me. Sister Tillman never said, you have to be like me. What we did have is a discussion of the mind. So when we pass things down, we want the next generation to hear our voice, know how to think in circumstances that only they will experience. As I said it on Sunday, we are faced with challenges today that no generation has ever experienced. No generation has ever had to deal with COVID and be outside of COVID and have fights with masks and try to get people back in the church and judge the whole politics of that. The gang violence, the intricacies of economic challenges within our community. They're the same, but on another token, they bring some new challenges. So we want to welcome tonight the now generation. To my right, we have Valerie Reynolds, and before we go to Valerie, I want you to know I am happy that all of y'all are liberators. That means something, y'all. I didn't have to go to the church down the street to find somebody. I didn't have to call BET to get somebody. I got some BET folks right here in the church, right? Not only for the past 3 weeks, but tonight. And so I want you to know I really appreciate that. So to my right, we have Valerie Reynolds. She is the current communications director at the University of Chicago for one of their departments. She is a graduate of the Ohio State University. If anybody knows anything about Ohio State, the is the important word to proceed Ohio State University. She has a BA in communications from Ohio State University, master's in journalism from Roosevelt University, and an MBA from American International University. So we welcome you today, Valerie, to our final night and to our panel. All right, to the right, now to the far left, is Sister Gemelita Tillman. She is the global director of the Harold Washington Cultural Center right down the street on 47th and King Drive, doing some great work. She has a BS degree from DePaul University, a master's in fine arts and directing from DePaul University, and on a national level, thank you, Gemelita, for your work. You've done some landmark legislation regarding the performing arts, which is critical for the creativity of our people and the creativity that our community has. So we welcome you tonight to our panel. And we have here Lieutenant, the Morehouse man. There's something about, I want y'all to know, if y'all didn't catch it today, we all wore our college and university attire today. And so there's two of us that's got on maroon and white, but we ain't gonna hold that against them at all right? All right, let me stop before they go get in their car and go home. All right, so we have with us today Lieutenant Ernest Spradley. Been on Chicago Police Force for 20 years. We're very proud of Lieutenant Spradley. Lieutenant Spradley is the youngest male African-American lieutenant in the Chicago Police Department. That's right here. That's our now. That's our now right here. So we welcome you, Brother Spradley. He has a BA in education from Morehouse College. Some people call that the Harvard of the South. I'm just saying. Somebody told me that. He has a master's in public safety administration from Calumet University. So we welcome you, my main man, Ernest Spradley. And Ernest Spradley is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Gemelita Sigma Gamma Rho. All right, well, we got to get that in. We'll do the Greek stuff on another day, but we won't break down the college stuff today. All right, our final panelist is really not our finalist. This is a brother that we really appreciate around the church. We have to feed the homeless in the church. He's my right hand. He's got a great spirit. Very few preachers are willing to pick up the mop and mop the floor when you need it. Most just want to be in that box and want to pontificate on Sunday. But we are delighted to have on our panel the one y'all all love. Y'all always talk about him, Reverend Anthony Lewis is on our panel, but he's more than simply a minister here at the church. He is a Cook County probation officer. He's been doing that for 8 years. He is all throughout his life, because we've known each other since we were about 13 years old. All throughout his life, as he's become a young adult, he mentors young people whenever he has the opportunity, and so we're glad to have Reverend Anthony Lewis here. Reverend Lewis has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Quincy University, and so he is sporting his Quincy, man, what is that, an owl or a bird or what? A hawk. He's offering the Quincy Hawks here on the day. I couldn't tell what that was. I'm glad I didn't say owl. It's a hawk, the Quincy Hawks. So we are glad about that. As we talk tonight, I'm about to get into the discussion. As we talk tonight about with the now generation, about what it is to be African American, raise children, whatever route we end up going to in the Black Lives George Floyd era. We're going to have questions come from two young ladies who happen to have been told, but they willingly accepted, to help me moderate tonight by asking questions, and I'll be chiming in throughout. We have two individuals here from Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia. That's known as the home by the sea, all right? And so we want them to introduce themselves to you on tonight, and then you all can, you can just stand where you are, separate right, or whatever, and our cameras will catch you, and then they'll begin to ask the questions under my direction. All right.
Hi, my name is Drew Hunt. I am a second-year business management major at Hampton University. Go HU.
Hi, my name is Winter Sherman. I'm a second-year biology pre-dental major from New Haven, Connecticut.
All right. Well, Drew, let us start with the panel with our first set of questions, starting with Valerie, and I'll chime in. And to avoid some of our feedback, when you get through asking your question, you can just turn your mic off, all right? And then you guys turn your mics on only as you need them. So if they're on now, turn them off. All right.
Hi, Ms. Valerie. As we reflect on past panels, what things do you believe are the same, and what challenges do you believe are greater or different than before?
Thank you, Drew. That's a really good question. I think many of the things that remain the same is it's just really our struggle as a Black community to thrive and to, quite frankly, to stay alive. You know, it's not the Jim Crow South, and we're not slaves anymore, but we still are very much second-class citizens. And we're still just struggling, I think, as a community to thrive and to just to be a healthy community. And it's very much by design. It's the systems and structures that impact our lives. But, you know, personal accountability is a big theme of mine. So they both interplay with each other. But I also think in the way that things have changed is the amount of understanding that I think other communities now have, you know, as a result of the George Floyd. I call this the fake woke movement, because, you know, if that's the case, you know, what happened when Trayvon died? Like, why didn't y'all wake up then? So I call it kind of fake woke. But, you know, whatever it took for people to really become a little bit more supportive of what people go through, particularly Black people, is a lot different, because we have support, both capital and emotional support, from different groups.
And that's critical. What I think, Valerie, that was profound, because it seems like hundreds of years later, our plight is still survival. Right? That struck me. You know, just to make it from day to day. Yeah. We would make it from day to day in slavery, right?
I want to touch on that. Thank you, Drew, for that, and thanks for you batted off exceptionally well for the
Absolutely.
whole group, setting the tone. So this year alone, I've traveled to Accra, Ghana, where we're doing some work in Osu, and then I just recently got back from Rio de Janeiro. So to put it in perspective, there's one place where the boats took off, and there's another place where the boats landed when we were enslaved. The story of how our people fought to become free in Brazil, and the story of how the women, this being Women's History Month, fought to get the children back and fought hundreds of years. There was a lot of fighters during the time of the enslavement of our people. And I feel that part of what we're experiencing now with, as what one would call the fake woke movement, is there is a disconnect between the now generation, the next generation, and the generation before, because everyone wants to say they can do it better than the generation before. Whereas the generations, when they were our age, or better yet, when they were Drew's age, 18, 19, 16, even Dorothy Jean's age, they were the ones that were on the battlefield during all the civil rights activity, but there were also adults that were seasoned that they listened to. And the disconnect now is the I know better than concept rather than the cohesion of working together. And then there's a lack of God in a lot of the movements that are present today. They don't believe in praying before they go out and march. It's a lot of reactionary. And I believe that often has to do with who is authentically leading these movements. The movements during the time of my mom and that generation, my mother's the Honorable Dorothy Tillman, but the way that they were led was from within their community. A lot of what's happening right now are organizers from outside of our community that don't look like us, that don't understand or know anything about us, and they are gaslighting is the term that is used, our community, and to be able to make us have some infighting where there normally would not be. They're making us have these wars against our faith, and that is an issue that I see, that there's so many people that are part of this woke generation that want to disconnect from God. You say, let's pray before we go out here and move, they're going to curse you out. Now, that's an underlying problem. So when we look at what is a definite difference, that they always prayed, they listened, they worked together cohesively, and they went out forward. That's a major thing.
Yeah, and we talked about that in some of the sessions, how this has been this disconnect of our community from God, and also a disconnect in the philosophy of our expectations for the next generation. And I will say this because he's part of who I am. My father just would always say, and I know Liberty tired of me saying it, but I'm going to say it till we get it. He always felt that he was to prepare me for the battle. And his expectation was for me to move forward, but he knew I couldn't do that without him. And that's that cohesion that you're talking about, that. And a lot of times, guys, as I've studied history, younger, of course, in my late teens, early 20s, I would read the stories of Dr. King, and I would read stories of Malcolm X, and I would literally say, doggone, he only 20-something years old. So where does this mentality come that suggests that someone who was young can't do it? But Dr. King had people like his father behind him, people like D.Z. Jackson behind him, right? This church has the relationship with the King family, not because of A.P. Jackson, but was that D.Z. Jackson and Daddy King were friends who introduced their sons to one another. And so that's what we've lost, the God and using that generation, as we saw these 3 weeks with Sister Tillman's interaction with me, Brother Lee's interaction with me, and the first panel. They all spoke like, come on, man, we got you. We got the now generation. Do it how God tells you, we got you. And I think we've gotten away from that. All right, Brother Spradley.
It's hard to come add anything more than what they said, but you know, the younger generation, what is different from now and the past is that.
Hold on, Brother Bradley. And I want y'all to know this on Facebook and YouTube just because he forgot, but he's my boy. Please give us your disclaimer from the Chicago Police Department
Sure.
that you are speaking on your own behalf.
That is correct.
All
Everyone here. I am a Chicago police officer, lieutenant. Everything that I say is my personal view as a member of this church, as a member of the community that I serve, not as a Chicago police officer. These are independent statements that you may hear me make. Thank you, Pastor. I appreciate that.
Go for it, man. Go for it.
The disconnect is that, you know, we lost the structure, and I can't pinpoint what years it was that we lost the structure from the generations where we had that head and that focus to move forward, to drive us forward with that support system. Now we have support system in the internet, people that we don't know. I want to be internet famous, and that kind of drives the culture. When we had the church and people that we knew and we could reach out to help push us along when we needed each other. Just same thing as Jim Lita said, we definitely need that support system and try to find a way to come back to giving that support system where we can, like we talked about, pass the torch from one generation to another. Because right now, it would be like, you know, we're here, we're the Now group, just as Pastor said, but for the generation like these young ladies, you know, we have to be able to tap into their energy and they have to be able to tap into ours, but we have to make a smoother transition so we can get into a better foundation so they can carry on the torch.
All right, Reverend Lewis.
Thank you, Pastor. I believe that all of this was done by design.
All right.
The establishment has what I would consider non-stakeholders leading the movement. Individuals who have no stake in our community except to devour it. So our young people have to be aware that some of the things that they find fascinating or intriguing are meant to draw them away from the movement. You spoke earlier about being young. Chairman Fred Hampton was 21 when they murdered him.
Yeah.
And he was on the FBI's most hated list at 21.
21, yeah.
So it's not new, and it's not by accident. The things that we faced in the past, the struggles, and for them to keep us that way is all by design. We have to, as a community, a collective, get together and, like Lieutenant said, begin to prepare our younger generation. You know, the establishment prepares their generation for 20 years ahead, and we have to begin to do the same things, prepare our children, prepare our grandchildren for what's gonna happen. Not that we know what's gonna happen, but this is what could happen if you know, put your ducks in a row, begin to follow the Lord. So I think that it's all by design.
Yeah, and you know what you guys are kind of just accentuating is the discussion we had with Sister Tillman about we got to be careful who controls our lesson plan. And what's the basis of the lesson plan? See, I have no issue with the slogan, Black Lives Matter. I have no issue with the slogan, Black Lives Matter. But we have to then peel back and challenge the organization because, you know, and maybe it's because I am too old. And my dad, I had an old father. He'd have been 80-something years old. So I grew up in a house of old person. My old man always would say, be careful about somebody that jumps to your cause too fast because what might be their agenda. And so not only with that movement, with other movements, I think we've lost that our first primary function as a people was to look to our God, right? We look to the organization, then we talk about God later. We have to make sure that we look to our God first. And so this is kind of a curveball before Winter asks the second question, but I think we just need to kind of talk about it because you all know, like I know, you have friends like I have. Why has the now generation basically said, I'm done with y'all? Let's talk about it.
Who are we done with? We're done with
Our generation said they done with the church.
Done
They
with
done
the church.
with God. Because we talking about, yeah,
Okay.
we got to come back to the Lord, right? Kumbaya. Let's go and hit it tonight. Why is it that this now generation is scarce in most churches? Jim Lee, we start with you. We swing on.
Well, one
To
of the
my
things we've got to remember is it is so true that birds of a feather will flock together.
It's true.
And a lot of what we may be seeing, now my flock, we praise the Lord. Okay, let me just be very clear. I've got 20-year friends that we've been friends since college, and that, but for the grace of God and our praying mothers, through our collegiate years, did we make it through. And one of the things we always have to remember, Pastor Hunt and everybody that's joining us today, is that, Jesus kept his circle tight. He had his dozen that he rolled with, and then it's like, this is what we gonna do, and this is how we gonna do it, and everybody was on one accord. And that's what's so important. You have to be mindful of who and what is influencing you. So whether that influence is the people that you're working with or you're in school with, you're socializing with, the Lord wants us to have a romantic relationship with him. And then there's these romantic relationships that we have with the opposite sex, or these romantic agape relationships, if you will, that we even have with our sisterhood circle and our sisterhood and our wine clubs. And so we're so busy trying to go after the things that our parents may not have had or may not have done, that we're not stepping into the things that they did have and that they did do. It's trying to live up to what we might have said when we was teenagers. When I get older, I ain't gonna never do, it's this subconscious beatdown that I believe that the generation of the 1968 to 1984-ish, so I'm gonna, maybe put it at that time span, 84, 85. It's this whole, we have adults trying to rebel against parents, and they grown as heck. We got 50-year-old people that's still trying to rebel against a 70-something-year-old mothers and fathers now. It is what I would call arrested development. I think the now generation, we've had a stunted growth on a lot of things as we see them. We're looking for a way to blame someone else. We have bought into the narrative that we are monolithic, that everything's got to be either criminal justice or it's got to be some random hustle, that there's no spectrum to who we are. We have bought into all things are better with Coke. It's the marketing. And so the marketing comes through all of our communications. It comes through our media. We see it in our performing arts where you don't talk about God. Faith is bad. Down with faith. But as Jesus said, Revelations 3:15, what is it? I want you either hot or I want you cold, but don't come lukewarm.
Right.
In the now generation, we can be a bit lukewarm. We want to walk that line, but if I don't care if I'm at the club, I don't care if I'm on the stage, wherever I am, I'm taking Jesus with me, I'm bringing Jesus back, I'm going to sprinkle him around. You have to be fearless with your faith. And that is what I believe in our generation, it's lukewarm.
And what I like about that, and we're going to go to Valerie, is Valerie said something in the beginning about accountability. And so what I like about the response that we have so far is we're not church bashing. Like I just asked y'all the questions to get your answer. We're not church bashing. We're saying, well, how can we be accountable for this? And so what we see as a people, we were very zeroed on in freedom, right, which made us trust God. We got freedom. It looked like freedom became a distraction. Wow. Something you chase after and finally get can become your greatest distraction and blind you to God. Valerie, let's know your thoughts.
So my answer is a little bit twofold. So first, it sort of piggybacks on what you were saying, Pastor Hunt, about organizing and knowing who's controlling the lesson plan. And in my earlier days when I moved to Chicago, it's surprising that it's been 22 years, but I used to be a part of a lot of organizing groups. And one of the things that they used to remind us of is because we were so successful at organizing in the 60s, is to not forget that now we're being organized against. So they're coming together and they're putting together people to organize against what they know we're going to do. And that includes the church. So I work at a research center, so everything that that we do is always backed by research. But there's real research that points to the structures and the systems and how they impact everyday lives. And so a lot of the things that people are, decisions that people are making are because of what other people are telling them to do in subtle ways. And so, but personal accountability is my jam. So while the systems and structures play a role in everything that we do, everyone has a decision to make at the end of the day. And if we wonder why am I getting this feedback? If we're wondering why, in my opinion, a part of the reason, because I don't think that anything has one answer, most things don't, but a part of the reason that I believe that that this generation many of us have said that they are done with the church is because a lot of the older generation have said they are done with us. And so, you know, you come to the church and you've said things like this, Pastor Hunt, and you don't have on the right outfit, you will get talked about. You know, I think there was an incident earlier in the church when I first joined, and there was a lady who joined the church, and she had on jeans, and she went to the bathroom, and the ladies were talking about her, and she was in the stall, so she never came back. And so, you know, it's a number of microaggressions that I think even happen within the church that really just prevent people from feeling welcome. And I think that we all can do a better job of just leaning into each other's different experiences and to try to just understand what other people's truths are, because everyone has a different truth, and that doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It's just different, and the different perspectives are what are going to grow us as a people.
I agree. That was wonderful, wonderfully put. Let's go to I have nothing else to say to that one. These ladies jammed that. Sorry to put the pressure on you guys going last. But we go to Tony, and then we'll go to Ernest. Let us know some of your thoughts on that.
I believe that integration killed us. You know, we would strive so hard to get there, and then we got there and found out it was astroturf. It has taken us away from our God. It's taken us away from building our community. And because I grew up on 47th Street, and at one time it was black everything, you know. And when I got there in the 80s, it was a ghost town. But they talked about how we weren't able to go downtown, and once we were able to go downtown, we left all of our things behind to integrate. It made it better, so to say, but it actually tore us apart.
That's awesome take. Someone close to me once said I was a teenager. I was in high school. Older guy said to me, "We were better when it was segregation." And I said, "What?" You know, that's just counterintuitive to everything we try to do. Then he sat me down and explained to me, desegregation was something necessary to happen. But he mentioned the fact that when we were segregated, we had a different sense of pride.
Yes, sir.
A different sense of that assimilation enemy had not kind of jumped our bones, so to speak. And he talked about, and I've never experienced this, I know the now generation hasn't either, 8 grades being in one classroom. But everybody in there wanted to learn, right? Because there was something about that. So desegregation was necessary, but we have to also look at the challenges of integration and how we might have lost ourselves to a degree. That's a great take. Brother Spratt.
You know, I think that we've kind of lost sight of the plight overall. And what I say by that is I'm saying that, you know, our grandmothers had a different struggle than our mothers did, and our mothers have a different struggle than we do now. But our grandmothers preached to our mothers and fathers and said, "Hey, I want you to make it, baby." And our mothers did to a point, and our fathers did to a point. And then our mothers and fathers told us the same thing. "Hey, I want you to make it. I want you to do better than us." And in some aspects we did. And we became comfortable. And we thought we made it, and we thought that was the finish line. And the finish line didn't get pushed back far enough. We just thought that we had made it. And the generation now, since we feel like we have made it, we've made religion so comfortable to bend to our beliefs and our standards to make it work for us. We don't decide to, we're going to work for Jesus. We're going to, okay, I'll turn on the TV because it's comfortable for us now. Even me, I'm guilty of it. You know, we have technology that makes it comfortable for us. If religion doesn't work, I'll change the word and I'll control the narrative so that it works for me. And so now when we've controlled the narrative or changed the narrative or changed the translation, then we become comfortable and complacent and we don't pass on the right passage to the next generation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Most of us in here grew up under the mantra, and unfortunately for Drew, she grew up under this mantra too. Going to church was never a choice, y'all. It was never, do you want to go this morning, baby? I was like, you going. And hey, I was 18, 19, partied all night long. Came in with my mama's car at 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. But guess what? I'm going to get up, right? And so that priority has been missing. Winter, give us our next question, and Valerie, we want you to respond to the next question and move over to this way.
Okay, so how did the death of George Floyd impact you?
Oh, wow. So I think it's only proper that I say that, you know, I'm pretty sure, like most of us, I have some trauma coded on my DNA as we speak as it relates to just this last decade and what we've had to watch on TV. And so I had checked out. I was like, I'm not watching any of this stuff around Trayvon Martin. Like that one just, I still can barely speak about what happened with Trayvon Martin without tears. And so I had checked out. I was like, I just can't continue to take this in. And I caught it by accident on my social media thread. I was like, what's this? I woke up. We were already in the pandemic. I was sleepy. I was a teacher. I was a mother. I was doing so many things at once. And I just happened to see it. And I watched it for the full 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And I was really just numb that this is still happening to people in broad daylight. And then it just reminded me that we only all can do what we can from our own individual spaces. And so it was actually in this moment when I realized that this is our moment. So, you know, I had a double major in Black Studies, and so I was always kind of like, if I was in the 60s, I would have been doing X, Y, and Z, and I would have been marching, and, you know, just all these things. But I'm a single mom. I have young children, and so I didn't march. But it also reminded me that everyone in the 60s didn't march either. And so everyone did what they could from their own space. And I am a really strong believer that what we see, the images that are put on TV, like the Black image has been owned by white people for so long. We don't own our own images. And it's a sick image that they project. And I think that that as a media person, as a creator, as a communicator, my space is to create images that really help us, that really like make us well, and to disseminate those images, because the images that aren't owned by us are figments of the imagination of other people. And so from that place is when I knew that I would use my space as a communicator to just make sure that I'm creating and disseminating messages that are positive about our people.
I can say that the death itself of George Floyd was nothing new to me. I was raised a Black man, so our encounters with the police are different. It wasn't until I got a star that my encounters began to be less aggressive. So the death of George Floyd was nothing new to me, but the movement that took place as a result of the death kind of took me by surprise. I was moved because so many young people were out there, and I'm gonna say rioting because it's rioting, and Dr. King said the language of a riot is that of an unheard people. So it's important that we begin to understand that the establishment has a design. It's designed to keep us unheard. It's designed to keep us infighting, and we have to stand up, unify, and go against the status quo and the establishment. So the death of George Floyd itself was nothing new in my eyes, but the movement that came as a result of it was inspiring.
It absolutely was. The most touching moment, as you talk about how it moved the next generation, was when I decided to just participate in a march that was walking past our church. I thought it was important as the pastor that if it was a march on King Drive, that I probably should be in it, right? And I'm not a marching kind of guy for various reasons we won't talk about today. But to really show how it impacted the youth, there was some danger that I was concerned about being involved. And I'll never forget, Drew said, "Dad, I want to go out there with you." And I thought of all the reasons to tell her no, because of riding, because of danger. And then I just kind of trusted in God and said, "Come on." Because that's the way that next generation responded, like, we got to do something. And I didn't want to rob her of that. So I just went on there and prayed that it would work out. And thank God that it did.
Professionally, I dealt with it in a personal way, in trying to internalize what I kept seeing over and over. Will Smith said one time, it's not that this just started happening, it's just that we're filming it more, and the world is starting to see it, right? Personally, it was just like another hurt again, because I saw myself at some point in the video, and I didn't even finish. I never even finished, got to the 8 minutes, 46 seconds. I probably stopped about 8 minutes, and it was like, I'm done. I've seen enough. I'm going to see it over and over again. But it hurt because as a black male, being with a father, I saw myself in him. And, I haven't been in that situation where I was on the ground, with a police officer with his neck over my knee, but I did see myself in him. And I didn't see him as a criminal, as somebody that was doing something wrong or passing or whatever $20 bill. I saw him as a human being, and I think the world could agree with me when you see a 6'5", 6'6", huge guy crying for his mom. That if that doesn't rock you, something's wrong with you, right? The good thing about it is, like everybody said here, the way we were able to organize and use social media platforms to organize in a positive manner was great. I hate that his face had to be the poster child to be on a T-shirt for us to do that. However, we didn't let that opportunity fail and go by the wayside and not do anything about it. The kids, the youth, did not let that occurrence and say, we're going to push it to the side and wait for the next one to happen to do something about it. They stopped in and organized, and yes, some of them did right, but the peaceful ones did do it the right way, and they made some change, and I'm proud of them for doing that.
The George Floyd situation is anyone losing their life at the hands of another is not of God. It is not of our faith. In the George Floyd situation, from my perspective of the now generation, is the example that God will use anyone. Because I had to pray about how I felt about what happened with George Floyd. Researching and knowing some of his past transgressions, I wonder how did the mother that was pregnant, that when he was under the influence of substance use disorders, that he robbed her at gunpoint with her children while she was pregnant. And I had to remember, as I think we were at Transformation, when we were talking about how God can use anybody. Paul saw the whole, he got filled with the Holy Spirit and set his eyes upon him. It's like, okay, this is a moment where my faith I have to come to love and not to judge within that situation, because it is so easy to condemn someone when you're looking from a perspective of a woman who's carried a child, a woman who has to walk down the street with her nieces and nephews and have to worry about if that happens to you on that end. So that it was a very sensitive topic for me to deal with and to listen, but that is why going back to our faith is so important because everything that we're faced with is in the book. There's a blueprint for it. There's a lesson plan for it. And I had to say, okay, God has a bigger picture. Because, I mean, there was Gina 6, right? There was a whole lot of things that happened. But there was something about, because even during Gina 6, we had internet. There has been internet with a lot of the things that were going on. But it was something about the reason why this one was chosen out of all of them to be the one that is now the erected statue and the sculptures and this, that, and the other. And I have to look at it from the perspective of God will use anyone at any time. And I think it was something I read that don't judge me because my sin is different from your sin, and let God deal with that and let God handle that. That is so important and so key in this instance. I even read where the mother that he, had that incident with prayed with the children in her family for forgiveness because that could have been her nephew, that regardless of the other situation. So I'm even getting chills right now thinking about it because there's a whole litany of things that need to be addressed, especially when we're dealing with substance use disorder, when people are possessed by the demon of substance. Those things go left and right. We can look at how could the situation have played out differently had certain factors not been a factor, but we don't know. And we just have to, it's a very sensitive topic when dealing with, because I'm like, what, that could have easily been your daughter. So how do you feel once this happened? And some people might rewind the doggone 8 minutes like, yep. But if we are Christ-like and we are keeping our mind stayed on Jesus, and that's why the faith is so important, because you have to be able to forgive and look past those transgressions, even when it's tough, because it was tough for me. I didn't have the same take initially. But I had to go to God with that one because it was tough.
And what was key with that whole scenario is, and Jamalee, you hit it right on. That was a lot of the talk. That is a lot of talk when a lot of these things happen. What's the guy's criminal record? What did they do? And those are realities, right? But our faith does draw into a humanization of one's right to live. And God did end up using someone who we probably never would have thought would have created that kind of worldwide response. And if you really look at it, I love the way you make it about the faith, is it really wasn't about him, it was about what God did. The awareness that jumped out through that. All right, Valerie's had to go. She had something to do, had to go pick up a kid at 8 o'clock, and so we all understand that. And so, Drew, we want you to start with Reverend Lewis there and take us to our third question. We already did it. Just ask the third question. Oh, you want to answer it? Oh, okay, you want to say something. Okay.
I wanted to talk about how my generation, which I feel like I can speak for me and Winter a little bit, I never imagined that the devastating death of George Floyd would have me and my dad marching down Martin Luther King Drive at the age of 17 in 2020, like a march. What year are we in? Like, I would have never imagined that I would have acquaintances talking about, yeah, we're gonna loot our black neighborhoods. Like, what? What do you mean? Like, that really changed my life because it gave me a chance to stand up in a positive way, in a peaceful way, and really not even just see what's happening, but really grasp the weight of what's happening in our communities and what we could do to be better and to be more involved and really show our support without we could do a peaceful scene, a peaceful protest, and that will also help share with our generation. And yeah, that was it.
Thank you. Yeah, that was critical. How that next generation felt engaged, and I think as the now generation, now I'm talking like the old guy, right? I think we kind of knew that from our parents because a lot of us have parents that went through it, but our kids didn't have parents that went through it. Right? And so for them to respond in that way with their marching like their grandparents, I think it's critical to their psyche and hopefully works in a positive way as opposed to terrorizing our neighborhoods, which we did see, which we don't have enough time to cover tonight. So Drew, can you give us our third question? And Valerie is still here with us, so we'll let this be her last question before she has to go.
What would you say to the next generation, and how should we prepare them?
So I think to answer the second question first, I think they should be prepared with the spiritual armor. And that's for anything in life. Like, you know, life can just really throw a lot at you. And I think that if you're prepared spiritually and have the foundation as a Christian, that you can get through just about any of those things. You know, I remember, I'm thinking about what Sister Tillman was saying in her conversation with Pastor Hunt about how it wasn't that they weren't afraid to go out there. It was that they had that really strong prayerful background and spiritual background that gave their fear to Jesus and let them go out there and change the world. And so that's how I would prepare the next generation. Because I do think that's a large part of what's missing in our generation when we look at a lot of the social ills. Even within our own community, I think a lot could be fixed with spirituality and just understanding who Jesus is and who he is in our lives and what he means to our community. But what I would tell them is to just be your unabashed self. I'm learning that as a mid-40s person, is to just really be my unabashed self. I'm just really naturally goofy. And I'm just kind of starting to lean into that. But I just feel like that, as I was saying, we can all contribute something to this movement. I mean, if we look at movements throughout history, there was art, there was music, there was Mahalia Jackson, there were books, there were scholars, there were marchers, there were preachers. Everyone can contribute something from their own space. And I just think being your unabashed self is just the most authentic thing you can bring to any movement.
I actually work with the juvenile in the probation department, so it's my job daily to prepare young people for what's to come. And what I often say to them is, don't let the distraction become your main attraction. You know, we get so caught up in things that really don't matter, things that have no real value, and we make that our focal point, our centerpiece. And once you find out that it's smoke and mirrors, then you're disappointed. You put your whole hope into something that's not real, and you'll easily be led astray that way. So I try to prepare the youth and say, you know, keep your eyes on the prize. I think that was a movie from back in, a documentary. Keep your eyes on the prize. And we get so distracted with other small things and tend to let the dream or let the correct vision go astray because we're chasing something that's not real.
You know, this is important because we have same-age daughters that go to the same school, and all of us have kids and nieces and nephews that we love and care about. If this could be documented, a voice that we can leave back to the youth and say, hey, this is what we want to tell you all. It reminds me of a saying that I heard a man once tell me, that out of the night that covers me, black is the pit from pole to pole. I thank whatever my gods may be for my unconquerable soul. You all have an unconquerable soul, but it needs to be fed. And the way you feed your soul is through your faith first. Feed your soul through your faith, the direction of your spiritual leader. In my case, in our case, is Pastor Hunt. And then your parents. Your parents are your biggest cheerleaders. We are not here to lead you down the wrong path, trust me. We are going to tell you everything that you need to do to succeed. But there's a part that we can't tell you, that you have to develop yourself as young people, right? And with that, I would tell you all as young people, the next generation, use your platforms, You have multiple social media platforms that you don't have to spend 30 minutes doing the little puppy dance with to make silly TikTok videos. Use that platform to build on what you want to see the changes. Just like in my job in the department, if you don't think that my department is okay, it's the way to change it is to get inside of it. If your car breaks down, right, you have to take it to the mechanic, and you let the mechanic raise the hood, and he can get inside the car to change it. It's the same thing with everything else. Get inside what you want to change and change it the right way. Don't use your platform to riot and steal and things like that. Use your platform and your ability to connect with other youth that you've never seen or never heard of to be an agent of change. Identify the problem and then come up with a solution.
Well, one, I would say that it's okay to not know. You don't have to know. It's okay to not know. Manners are very important. Even Jesus said thank you to God before he raised Lazarus from the dead. He thanked God, like, okay, thank you for what I'm about to do. Manners are important, and with those manners, you have to, as you're a leader, you don't have to wait till you grow up. There's no whole, I don't believe in the when you grow up, what are you going to do? Because that might change. I have a girlfriend of mine, went to school for oncology. Now she is breeding horses, making way more than she was as an oncologist. True story. She's in Georgia. Being compassionate to one another and being passionate, that's being Christ-like. Christ was passionate about us. Passionate about us. We have to be passionate. And as it pertains to being yourself, know who that is. Human growth and development is real. Grow with who you are. Grow. But it also in the Bible, because I like to keep it to the word, and I do this with DJ because my daughter, she's on a different kind of trajectory than her peers, and finding that balance between where she is academically, where she is socially, and staying this course spiritually. We have to keep our children prayed up. But what is in your heart will come from your mouth. So if good is in your heart, you might fumble a little bit with how you explain it and express it, but what's genuinely on your heart will express itself. God will give you those words, but God ain't gonna let you be around all his people and you got malice in your heart and not let you know that it's gonna come out, so we can figure out how to deal with whatever that possession is. So you gotta be yourself, but be good in your heart. Be passionate, compassionate, have manners, say thank you. Just remember, Jesus said thank you all the time to God. Let's just say thank you. Have manners, listen to one another, and it is okay to not know. That's what I would say.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Winter, for your asking of those questions. I think we're at a good place. We're not going to go to the fourth question. We're at a good place to shut it down. Tonight, you all done a wonderful job. The first two responses were outstanding. The third was outstanding. I really just hit my spirit. I think the third is the most important. And it started with Valerie talking about, and you all carried it through. We want the next generation, just be yourself. Find God and find who you are through God. And I think the step that was missed with us, the now generation, although our parents told us to be ourselves. But one of the struggles is you have people trying to mold us and tell us who we need to be. It is just a profound thing that I heard you all say, and I'm going to say this. I'm glad when you talk about being yourself. I love the history of this church and everybody before me, but I ain't trying to be nobody before me. Don't even bother me. I got to wake up every day. You got to wake up in whatever you do. You have to wake up in what you all do, comfortable being who God called you to be. And what a message that is, right? Because and that's what's good about what we're trying to do as a generation. We're trying to tell this next generation, do you. I'm going to give you some principles. There's always principles to live by, right? Jim Alita's hitting us with the Bible, everything. She was the Bible scholar tonight, right? She's always taking us to the Bible. That's right. Everybody do their own little thing. Our communications was doing here, right? Tony taking us by the probate. This is why I had this group, because you all bring different dynamics. And so, yes, God is important. But to really help a next generation move forward, we need to let people know it's okay being them. That no generation is going to be a carbon copy of the next generation. But you know what we all can do that's the same? Trust in the same God.
That's right.
The God that was there was yesterday, the God that is here today, and the God that is here. That really is the commonality of the generations, not what needs to be done that's not intelligent, right? It's not intelligent if I just put on the same clothes that every pastor had on before me. That requires no mind. Same programs, same, and then the whole world around me be changing. But putting on that mind of Christ, getting pointed to that direction. All of us have been blessed in this church to sit at the feet of some great people that sat down and talked to us and could tell us we can make it, much like you, Valerie. And Drew's a little different. Drew high. This is not one thing about this new generation, DJ, they high self-esteem.
Yeah.
Right? They ain't like us talking about, I don't know if I want to be myself. It's like they came here themselves, right? But much like you, our generation, maybe Jim Leader's a little different. Jim Leader's been confident for a while too. But you know, most of us, I didn't really get no confidence until I was about 38, 40. Right? And now at 50, I just think I'm old yellow. Right? I just don't want to be bothered with nobody telling me nothing, right? But that confidence that you can make it, people told us that. And so, Liberty, friends, we hope you enjoyed tonight. We hope that you enjoy the now generation, whether you're 100, 80, 50, 40, 30, or 20. We just want you to be tonight who God has called you to be. And if we all become who God has called us to be, we'll be all right. And finally, I want you all to see this. This now generation, by you hearing them, they are ready for battle. They are ready for battle. God has his hand on this church. This church will survive to 200 years because this now generation, with the support of all those that have gone on before, are going to press our way to then, one, give it to the next generation of Drew and her friends and her colleagues that will one day succeed us. Let us go to God in prayer. God, we thank you for tonight. We once again thank you for all of the series. We thank you for this fourth part. I thank you for these men and women of God that you brought to share with us tonight. We thank you for their hearts. We thank you for their minds. We thank you for their journeys as they honestly shared with us nuggets that we are better for now than we were before we began. Go with us and stand by us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. For the first time in 2 months, I won't say, y'all will see me. I won't see you on Sunday. We all ought to see each other on Sunday. God bless you and God keep you.